Anytime Kansas takes on Kansas State, regardless of sport, it's called the Sunflower Showdown. Kansas is a sunflower state, so the name works and has stuck for over 100 years. But when the football teams square off, Kansas in Lawrence and Kansas State in Manhattan, they battle for an additional prize known as the Governor's Cup. It goes to the winner of this hated showdown between the Jayhawks and Wildcats, a harbinger of Big 12 success, and a rivalry we'll break down on this episode of Stadium Rivals. Kansas and Kansas State first squared off in 1902, with the Jayhawks accruing a 7-1 record in the first 8 meetings. The game in 1911 marked the start of the continuous rivalry, with the Jayhawks and Wildcats battling every year since. This showdown is the 6th longest annual series in the history of college football as of 2018. The 1924 game marked just the second win in 22 games for Kansas State, a 6-0 shutout. The Wildcats would win the next 3 games in the series as well, with the teams more or less alternating wins between the late 20s and early 40s. This rivalry series has seen its fair share of runs, with Kansas dominating early on and Kansas State clawing back in the modern era. From 1956 to 1968, Kansas State had 0 winning seasons and 0 wins over Kansas. Come the 1969 game, the Wildcats were up against John Riggins and a Jayhawks team that finished 9-1 and played in the Orange Bowl in 1968. With Lynn Dickey at quarterback, Kansas State pulled off the big win 26-22 to end KU's streak. The Governor's Cup was introduced before the game in 1969, the trophy going to the winner of the annual showdown ever since. On the field in 1980, Kansas came away with a 2018 win over Kansas State in Manhattan. However, it was later determined that running back Kerwin Bell was ineligible for the game. Kansas disputes that fact, resulting in both schools claiming victory and a dispute in the records of the Sunflower Showdown and the Governor's Cup. Kansas came into the game at 1-7, Kansas State came into the game at 0-8, and the game in 1987 marked that tone of futility. Kansas blocked a field goal at the end of the game, resulting in a 17-17 tie, the only draw in the Governor's Cup era. National commenters termed the game the Toilet Bowl. A man by the name of Bill Snyder came in to lead the Wildcats program in 1989, who, aside from a 3-year absence from 2006 to 2008, still holds the head coaching job as of 2018. Snyder's work to turn around Kansas State would come to a head with the game in 1993, where the Wildcats eked out a 10-9 victory that year. The win began a string of 11 straight wins for K-State, the longest such streak in the rivalry. Hype was building for the 1995 game as a 7-0 Kansas team ranked 6th in the country took on number 14 and 6-1 Kansas State in Manhattan. But the game failed to meet expectations as Snyder again proved his supremacy in the state with a 41-7 drubbing. Mark Mangino, a former K-State assistant under Bill Snyder, led Kansas to a 31-28 thrilling victory in 2004, Kansas's first win in the Sunflower Showdown in 11 years.
And talked about it starting back in 1902, and we are underway in Lawrence.
In 2010, the Sunflower Showdown became just the 7th college football rivalry in history to reach the 100 consecutive games mark.
Now, after the play fake and the chip, back in the end zone, touchdown, K-State and Tannehill.
A 59-7 blowout by K-State was the second in the Wildcats' current streak of 9 wins in a row, heading into the matchup in 2018. There have been 115 meetings between Kansas and Kansas State. Despite the Wildcats' recent run of success over the Jayhawks, Kansas still holds a 64-45-5 overall record, the disputed game excluded, going into 2018. But since 1923, it's been much closer, with Kansas's edge at just 47-45-2. All signs point to this rivalry continuing in the Big 12, with the winner getting bragging rights in Kansas for the historical showdown, the best of which we break down on Stadium Rivals.